Hey everybody, this is Carl back again for a topic of discussion that I've been wanting to really put my 2 cents in, if it's worth anything in this day and age. A couple of days ago, Amanda Stenberg, who is the star of Star Wars: The Acolyte, which I already gave a couple of videos giving my thoughts on the series as a whole. But recently she posted on Instagram a video, uh, you know, uh, just putting out the blame to everybody but the ones responsible. In a moment, I'll be playing that video, at least a little bit of it, because it's like 8 minutes long. But it just, there's been, given the thumbnail, there's been quite a few terrible things, or TV shows or movies that came out this year alone, that is equally, if not probably worse than The Acolyte. The only difference that I say is why, like Madam Web, or I take it a step further, Borderlands, is like, in terms of like the product itself, but the people behind the projects themselves made those projects that they worked on a lot more respectable than what we have here with the Acolyte. I'll get further into it in a second. I want to play a little bit of the video, then give my some critiques a little bit. But before I continue, please do me a favor. Like this video, share this with your friends. Follow me in the links in the description below, and let me know what you guys' thoughts on Amanda Stenberg's little video that she made. 1 second here, get everything posted here, and let's hear what she had to say.
Okay. Hello. I thought I would get on here and just speak candidly. I hate doing this. But I'm gonna do it. I don't use social media very much anymore. And I'm so happy about that. But there are many folks out there that I want to acknowledge and I want to show appreciation and love and support for. So that's why I'm hopping on here to talk about this.
And before we get even further into this, I gotta at least acknowledge the fact that, you know, she is like seems like a very lovely young woman. You know, very pretty. She comes from like a good family, like who's very affluent from what I'm understanding. So she really had, like, you know, the world was her oyster. So it's like, why are you shooting yourself in the foot the way you're doing recently? It's kind of wild to me.
Which is that our Star Wars show, has been canceled. And I'm gonna be transparent and say that it's not a huge shock for me. Of course, I live in the bubble of my own reality, but for those who aren't aware, there has been a rampage of vitriol that we have faced since the show was even announced, when it was still just a concept and when no one had even seen it. And that's when we started experiencing a rampage of, I would say, hyper-conservative bigotry and vitriol, prejudice, hatred, and hateful language towards.
Okay. Look, there are bigoted idiots out in the world. They did not make up the majority. Okay? a vast number of people. It's not even just in my circle, but it's just like from people that I've, reviewers that I've watched, that is very normal, understanding folks, not like super left or super right or anything of that sort. They, by and large, even though they can take out little snippets of stuff they actually did enjoy from the Acolyte, but by and large, they all in consensus say this is not a good show. So label it doesn't help if you label everybody a bigot just because they did not care for the show. And the fact that they tried to circumvent, like, oh, they're gonna, because I'm pretty sure Leslie Helen and people, Catholic Kennedy tried to put in their heads like, oh, they're gonna be people that are gonna be racist towards you, so be prepared for that. It's like, it's like there's other people of color that's been in Star Wars uh canon that we all love, like Mace Windu, Sam Jackson, Rosario Dawson's Ahsoka, uh, John Boyega, despite certain issues he had behind the scenes, like making a film. People were like ecstatic to see like his story, but they kind of fouled it up. But by and large, people was like, okay, we were gravitating to the new characters, but it's like didn't give them nothing to work with. He spent most of the time screaming Rey's name. And then let's not forget the great Billy D. Williams as Lando Calrissian, one of the most beloved, if not as equally loved as like somebody like Han Solo. So it's like, you're making the word bigot mean nothing if you keep labeling everybody who don't agree with you or has opposing views. Not everybody's going to like your stuff. Doesn't make them a bigot.
It does. And this really affected me when I first got the job, because it's just not something, even though I anticipated it happening, it's not something you can fully understand what it feels like until it's happening to you. However, I feel like I've kind of moved through those feelings in various ways, including being vocal about it myself. For me, it just became a situation where there was no option but for me to honor my sense of ethics and my belief system and my value system while being in this very unique position. It was kind of like I had this very unique experience of experiencing the world at large, which is, of course, hyper divisive right now, through the lens of this very, very unique opportunity of being.
The reason it was divisive because you Leslie Helen and Captain Kennedy and others of that ilk put that in there purposely. The whole force is female shtick did not help none. Like you didn't need to, like, it's like a hat on a hat. It's like there's plenty of. I made a video about this, that speaking on what George Lucas mentioned earlier this year, how like Princess Leia is one of the most iconic female figures in pop culture, not just with Star Wars, but just up there is like with Sarah Connor and Ellen Ripley in terms of like the most badass women in pop culture history. Everybody agrees wholeheartedly that they were amazing. They didn't have to go as like, girl power mode about it, And like, then it's like this whole red carpet PR thing. It's like, like making everything about like your sexual identity and, you're overdoing it a bit. And like it's like you didn't need to do that. Just tell like a solid story. It doesn't matter if like the main character was like a black female. Cool, but what's the layers behind all that stuff? And it did not help that your main character, both of them, only had that one facial expression. As an actor myself, I was taught where it comes to voice acting or just on camera acting, emoting is a critical thing that you have to do. So whatever happens in the context of the scene, if you don't convey it properly, the audience is not going to feel it. It's kind of like you just probably didn't give the. If I could give like a olive branch to Amanda Stenberg, maybe he wasn't given proper direction by Leslie Helen, because she should be knowledgeable on how to direct the actors to give the best performances, and clearly she did not do that job
in Star Wars. And it brought up a lot for me, a lot socio-political dynamics, a lot about my own value system, how I respond to that kind of hatred, how I move through the world at large. And it just became inarguable for me at a certain point that in order to continue to be myself, I would have to honor my value system by being vocal, even within the context of working for Disney and working within the large, massive IP that is Star Wars.
And yes, I bet it was like an amazing. It would have been an amazing call to work for Disney and everything like that. I'm pretty sure that was a huge opportunity. I'm not knocking her for that. I think a lot of people, myself included, will jump at the chance at working on like a Disney property. But you doing this whole "oh woe is me" video, it's probably not guaranteed, but I'm saying it's probably gonna hurt your chances of working with anything Disney related, because God forbid somebody has some kind of critique, whether it's legitimate or not, you're gonna feel butthurt about it, and then you're gonna be making diss tracks all over the place, and calling everybody, this, that, and the third, instead of just accepting it, which brings up like a point I was going to be making in a few minutes. Hold on.
Star Wars. On that topic, I just have to say it has been an incredible honor and dream for me to be in this universe. It still feels, even though, of course, I'm very sad about the show being canceled, and I'm sad about us not being able to give people who are invested into it more.
And in all honesty, I'm pretty sure given like the family you happen to be raised in, and like the connections you probably made, you'll probably be doing all right. There will be other projects. So all this seems unnecessary.
I'll just feel a lot of levity and joy around the fact that I got to experience it.
You'll have other opportunities.
And that people loved it, and that people were so responsive. I poured through a lot of different iterations of fan art and ship art and fan theories and things that were just so beautiful and filled my heart with joy.
And that is one of the other problems. Ever since the whole Kylo Ren Rey thing, and the awkward kiss and the awkward shirt off thing that they did with him in The Last Jedi, now they're trying to force. It was already cringy in that in of itself, but then they tried to repeat the thing, and when in the attempt to repeat that, it feels even more forced. and nobody was even with it in the first place, and now you're trying to really hammer it home, trying to force shipping, and it's just the whole entire thing is awkward, and it's like it is not needed. Nothing's happening organically with this, and it just Leslie Helen cannot probably. I'm pretty sure she, from what I heard, she worked on another different type of project before, and it was had some praise, so she probably knows how to do this, but she clearly cannot do anything Star Wars related because her priorities is somewhere else and trying to apply it to something that does not need any type of politicizing or like talking about anything about queerness or gender identities and all this. That's not needed in Star Wars. The same way, as a black person, I don't need anything about like the same kind of issues the first Black Panther movie was talking about works for that particular narrative. But I don't need that little essence glommed on to a Star Wars project, because those things do not correlate unless you're, because they already got that with the robots in Star Wars, where they face a bit of prejudice, and they don't hammer it home. They do subtleties to it. They don't ram me over the head with it, and that's what this whole thing with the whole power of many thing, which is now like a joke. It's a joke now, because you're trying to like do something that probably works in an indie project, or some kind of what do you call those fan fic things, and it just does not work here.
And I just want to let those people know out there who supported us in that way, and supported us vocally, despite and in the face of all of the vitriol that we received and the kind of the targeted attack, I would say, we received by the alt-right, just that we were deeply...
Look, like I said, I'm pretty sure there are a fringe group of idiots out there that are truly bigots, but they don't make up the majority. By and large, people have, unless they're shills, by and large, people who have reasonable minds, who objectively watch this, and even people who's ready to hate on it, still gave it a chance, hoping to be pleasantly surprised. It happens sometimes. People who, like the Inside Out 2, some people I followed was ready to probably like, oh my God, it's going to be, because they saw the trailer with that, purple haired little girl and all this other stuff. Like they had like oh my God, they're going to tell some kind of like queer story with this. But no, they was pleasantly surprised. There was a whole different thing. There was more meat and weight to the film than they were expecting. So it can happen if you got some good narratives and the characters are built from the ground up and have layers to them. You could easily shut up the naysayers that was there initially, instead of like, because nobody there on the Inside Out 2, before the movie came out, the director or the producer, nobody went on Twitter or whatever, or like the news or whatever, put stuff out like the same way Leslie Helen did, where it's like, oh, there's gonna be people who's gonna hate on you and they're just bigots and all the other stuff. It's like, no, let the work speak for themselves and judge what may. And the naysayers will quickly shut up. It happens. If the product is good, there will still be criticism. Even the best of them still get criticized. The Dark Knight has its own criticism with the Joker. Just things just tend to happen his way, but because the product was still so good, those little details, it doesn't ruin everything. And Dark Knight is one of the best films, of all time, and it got criticism. You don't hear Christopher Nolan, or like Christian Bale making diss tracks, or calling people alt-right or anything like that sort, because somebody had a issue with a particular thing from the product. That is like the major difference, and that goes into my thing with the whole Madam Web. Sydney Sweeney and Dakota Johnson acknowledge what they put out was a bad product. They make fun of it themselves. They talked about it. Like, they put the blame on who's responsible. Or even with the Borderlands film very recently, I did not hear not one inkling from Jamie Lee Curtis or Kevin Hart or any of those actors who was involved making any kind of diss tracks or calling out people who happened to did not care for the film. They just accepted the L and move on. So despite my feelings about the Borderlands film, because I'm a huge Borderlands fan, and the Borderlands movie that came out was not good, doesn't stop me from enjoying the games, but I acknowledge the fact that the film was kind of terrible. And Madam Web clearly wasn't major issue with that film, but I kudos to, because that's just the standard. As a matter of fact, there's been plenty of shows, plenty of movies that have their issues. Movies and TV shows are art. And like any art, it's once you put it out in the world, you accept the fact that it's gonna be criticized one way or another. There could be high praises, but certain details that might have little nitpicks about, or they're largely going to be like not liked, but a few minor details that might be a little like, this part was kind of cool here. Like Last Jedi, sticking with Star Wars, Last Jedi, by and large, people did not care for it. But that whole light speed through that ship was highly praised, even by the people who did not care for it. Acknowledged like that part was actually pretty stunning. So if you compare it to Acolyte, that fight scene with X-23 and Chimera was a pretty big standout. Out of everything else, that was probably like a solid standout. But it does not negate the fact that what you put out was bad. I think there's enough here. But it just, you gotta, she's new to this, roughly, Amanda Stenberg, but she's surrounded herself in terms of, she mentions here about some kind of echo chamber. It's like, isn't that the pot calling the kettle black? You surround yourself with people who are in your little echo chamber, and you grew up probably in because you're in LA. You grew up in a particular bubble yourself, and you acknowledge that. So good on you with that acknowledgement. But you're too, I won't say coddled, but you're just too sensitive about like thing you're putting out there. Dakota Johnson, she been in 50 Shades of Grey, which the movie was not liked at all, but she acknowledges that and accepted the L and moved on. There will be other projects where you can still work on your craft, and next thing you come out with might get better praise, and people will see that, oh, given the second chance or the third chance or whatever, we can see like, oh, hey, this is like this performance by Amanda Stenberg. Whoa, this is really good. She did very well in this thing. Hayden Christensen got skewered during the run of the prequels at their height in the early 2000s. It wasn't until, unfortunately, a little bit much later where we see him work, even before he came back into Star Wars stuff. He acted in other things where people see like, oh wow, he's actually a really good actor. If he worked on his craft, he researched the character. He did all his P's and Q's in order to give a great performance. So when he circles back to Vader, we see a very solid performance. You immediately buy like, oh, this is freaking Vader. This is a stunning performance here. And people are loving him for it. So it can happen. But he did not, after like the episode 3 was finished, or during I want to say like during that weekend when it was out, or even a week after it's out, he never went on this tirade about, oh, hey, people like are just not true fans. Only listen to people who actually like him, and just you can ignore that's the problem. She probably just can't help but acknowledge the people who dare criticize her. Just take it as healthy criticism. It's like, so that way you can ignore like the really bad apples, but those healthy criticisms, take it in, learn from it, so the next time around, because there will be a next time for her, she can really show her stuff and grow it. Because as Batman's dad says, why do we fall? So we learn to pick ourselves back up. You're not learning from this, Amanda Stenberg. You are not taking in what people are saying. The people who are giving healthy criticisms, not the. We're not the biggest are not the majority. If they got something to do with calling you the N-word or like saying other sus stuff, you can ignore that stuff because those are just those particular idiots. But people who have who are sensible folks who are not like just throwing out the color of your skin as like the main issue, that they point out the narrative of the show, and they point out how the character does not work in this particular scene or that particular scene or whatever. Take that in and say like, okay, maybe my character wasn't emoting in the right ways that was probably needed. So next project I'm gonna be working on, I'm gonna work on my emoting so I can give that true anger where the scene is needed. I can give gleefully as the scene needed, so that way it can be conveyed, so the audience, because that's who you're putting this out for, the audience, not just your fringe group of people who like you, and you probably shouldn't listen to people who only like this show because it's talking about female representation, or like only because it's only female representation. It's like only a female lead, it's only because it's a black person. You shouldn't listen to those people either. Listen to people who are just talking about the show themselves, because that's the major problem with Star Wars also recently, because they try to make everything about identity or checking off boxes, and that doesn't work with any kind of project, let alone Star Wars. Just tell a good story. Have some good characters that was built from the ground up, so that way people can glom onto, regardless of what gender they identify as or what color their skin is. Because it was like a good character. Like, people don't like Lando Calrissian only because he's black. He's smooth, he's charismatic, that doesn't have anything to do, smooth and charismatic, doesn't have anything to do with his freaking race. We like Han Solo, not because he's having a white straight male, because he's cool, he's adventurous, he's charming. It doesn't have nothing to do with his gender or his color of his skin. And Lucas, or like, Jon Favreau or anybody else who like worked on Star Wars, did not make that as like a major priority, and that is an issue. And that's what people kind of roll their eyes about, because Star Wars recently has got to make everything about, skin color and gender identity. And it's like, and they prioritize that. They barely have any room to fit in like a proper story. What was the major goal of May and Osha? What's the purpose of anything? You threw in Plagueis, seemed like at the last minute, as well as Yoda. That is just pitiful. You're treating like, people who come to watch Star Wars to escape. It's an escape movie where you can just go on this fun adventure. Just like almost any other movie. It's like, I want to watch the Ninja Turtles. I don't want the Ninja Turtles having to talk about like race or sexual identity. We get enough of that in the news, or everyday life. We want to take 2 hours or whatever, how many hours out of our day, because time is precious, to just escape from that a while and just go on this fun adventure, laugh, smile, scream in terror, cry sometimes, at just a fantasy of the fantasy that we're trying to absorb. And you making a diss track does not help your prospects none, because now anything any project you're going to be involved in, if anybody offers any type of criticism, or legit or not, you're going to start reeling in anxiety or just boo-hooing because somebody dared to not like you just by automatic likeness. Nobody can be liked all the time. Christopher Nolan, by and large, is liked by many people, and his films are garnered many praises. But Tenet was not very good. He didn't go on, and that's what man needs to learn from these. Not Leslie Helen. Talk with people who worked in the industry. Who seems like very sensible people, can give her some better guidance, like dealing with criticism in a healthy way. Like Jamie Lee Curtis, Kate Blanchett, Hayden Christensen. It's like many people can offer her some bit of wisdom and how to maneuver in this industry. Otherwise, because how are you going to maneuver in life if you can't handle that? This is just a woe is me video, unfortunately. And that in of itself is a criticism, is a woe is me kind of thing. You expect people to feel bad for you, and and it happens. They're crap shows. Sometimes there's good shows that get canceled too. And all this whole diatribe on Twitter/X where people's like, oh, the misogynist won, and it's like, nobody wins in this. People's actually looking forward to a story set 100 years prior to the prequels. You got high reviews in the first couple of episodes, because people were actually want to give this a chance and see what you can do with this. We was actually want to give you a solid chance, because we won't know until we actually see it. Now that we saw it, we can make a judgment. And I know, like, no judging kind of thing, where people have been on this kind of shtick in the past few years, but about no judging on every little thing. But that's how humans work. We tend to judge. That's how our brains operate. We just judge in a healthy manner. That's the what we should do. It's like, okay, I've watched this show, didn't work. The narrative didn't make any sense. The writing didn't make any sense. People show up conveniently. Hell, Game of Thrones has been like one of the most praised shows of history. But that last season, I'm not including House of the Dragon, but that last season of Game of Thrones was so piss poor. But none of those actors went on an Instagram video calling people like misogynists because they didn't like how the Queen of Dragons was handled. And the Queen of Dragons is still, despite the last season, it's still held as one of the people's favorite characters from that show. At least in the top 5. Because, like, we all have our favorite female or person of color in a fictional show or movie. We all have one. So it's like, it seems disingenuous just calling them bigots or misogynists because they, didn't agree. And so, that's why I give, to conclude on this, that's why I give, at least credit to the people behind Madam Web, Borderlands, or any other terrible show that came out before Acolyte started running. Because despite our criticism, they either are neutral about it, don't say nothing, which probably is the best PR move. I don't know who's your PR team, but you need to fire them because they would have told you, stop making videos. Just let it die. Let it be. People will get over it eventually. Or you can just, like with Ryan Reynolds, he despises Green Lantern. He makes fun of himself for even accepting the job in the first place if he watched Deadpool 2. But he never went out of his way to accuse the fans of the character of Green Lantern in general. It's like, oh, they're not real Green Lantern fans because they hated the movie. Never, not once did that. He put the blame on himself or at least by and large on himself, and just the movie as a whole, and not anybody who worked on it. But, or Dakota Johnson, who just I was kind of fooled. I thought we was going to do some kind of Marvel properly, but I got fooled. It's kind of garbage, which is kind of refreshing. She was literally on her little press tour thing, and she just said it very bluntly. It's like, yeah, this is kind of crap, basically. Not to put too fine a point on it. So, and Sydney Sweeney just took it in stride. It's like, hey, gave me a boost. Put some more acknowledgement on her. Now she's her stardom is shot up very quickly. And it's just ride the wave. Either don't say nothing, which is typical of a move, or just make fun of it. People probably like you even more if you make fun of it. People there's always kind of a giddy moment whenever Ryan Reynolds, at least insert at some point in those Deadpool films his hatred of the Green Lantern film or X-Men Origins Wolverine. He's always got to throw a little jab at that every once in a while because he makes fun of him himself. Like how terrible a movie over that. Matter of fact, people find that endearing. We'll probably find it endearing from you if you acknowledge, yeah, I agree with you guys. It was kind of lame. Or just, it's instead of a diss track, make fun of yourself, emoting. And it's yeah, man. Or it'd be kind of funny if Amanda Stenberg reacts to her own show and just man, it kind of like an SNL skit or something like that. It's man, this girl cannot emote. It's and just make stupid faces or something. I don't know. It's just make fun of yourself, and people will find you endearing. That will probably help a little bit. That goes a long way into your likability. People are not liking you right now because you're sitting there pointing fingers instead of just accepting the L. It happens. It happens to the best of them. Ryan Reynolds is still a hotshot star, but he took L's in his day. And when it comes to certain projects he was involved in. It happens. It's not the end of the world, and you don't need to sort of blame the people who dare not like it. But yeah, that was pretty much the video I just want to talk about, because honestly, she needs some proper guidance in terms of how to maneuver in this industry, because if she carries on like this, it's only going to hurt herself in the long run. I can just tell. She needs to get out of her own little bubble and get a healthy dose of reality. But that is just my thoughts. I'm curious to know what you guys think in the comments below. I'll see you guys next time for more just, pop culture topics like these. So I'll see you guys later. Peace.